And we're live with David Robinson of AOE, my good friend. How the heck are you?
Good. How are you, Kaylin?
Pretty good. I'm just feeling a little jealous of your video background there. It looks so fancy.
Yeah, I promise it's not fake.
There in the AOE offices. I told you it looked a little fake.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. So, our office is in Burlingame. I don't think we actually talked about that. You haven't been here yet, have you?
No. I got to make it up there.
Yeah, just south of the airport. So if you're in San Francisco for any reason, let me know and I'll come pick you up. We can do a little tour. There's a little track behind the place right next to the bay. It's awesome to go out there for lunch. So yeah.
Nice. Are you guys doing the still doing hackathons up there? Because I was trying to make it up there for one of those.
Typically we do the one hackathon for Imagine, and that's been going on for 5 years, I think. We haven't actually done one in the office, but they're always
not hackathon. Sorry, the meetup.
Oh yeah, we do meetups here every once in a while. Not as often as I would like, just because for some reason it doesn't seem like there's a lot of Magento developers around here that at least want to go to meetups. But there's one a little bit south, I think, called the Silicon Valley Magento meetup that seems like it might have a few more. So I'll have to check that out at some point.
Oh, cool. Yeah, San Francisco is one of those weird places where like everybody's busy building like social apps and crazy stuff.
There are like 500,000 startups on each block.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a few things. You obviously organized the hackathon at Imagine recently, and I think AOE, everybody that I know is fascinated with AOE as a company, and so just talk a little bit about how you guys work, how your company's how your teams are structured, that kind of thing. So we have a few things to talk about, but to get started, what was the process like of organizing the hackathon? Obviously, you had to step into some big shoes with Fabrizio having recently moved to Germany, and everybody missing him a lot. So what was that like for you?
Sure. So for the hackathon, I had like two main concerns. I wanted to make sure that everyone there had something that they felt like they could work on and not be scared to join a team or something like that. So going in, I really wanted to make sure that we put that forward as, if you have an idea and you already know what you want to work on, please try and be open to having people come help you. Just because I know in the past when I've been to a hackathon, it's kind of like, okay, well, I don't know anything about that specific thing, so I probably can't help them. But that's not always the case. And with the Magento community being so open and awesome, I think most people are very happy to help people learn and understand something that they don't totally get going in. So that was one thing. The other thing was making sure that I had enough t-shirts, because the t-shirts are always the coolest swag thing for Imagine, at least in my opinion.
Speaking of which, I'm rocking my Nexus. Nexus knows how to make a t-shirt, by the way.
Nice. Yeah, so we just made sure the designs were cool, and then the t-shirts actually didn't get delivered until like late the day before I had to leave, or maybe the day I had to leave, which was kind of scary.
Shipping t-shirts is a mess.
Yeah, but it all worked out, and I think the t-shirts ended up being pretty cool. So
did I end up getting one? I feel like I didn't end up getting one.
Oh no.
We got to figure that out.
I think I have like 1 or 2 left, so I'll have to go find it.
Okay. I have like 3 or 4 from previous years, but you got to have the latest hackathon shirt, or else you're a loser.
Yep.
Nice. So figuring out how to structure project teams, what would you say for people thinking about joining hackathon? Like what are some of the, common concerns? Like, oh, I don't know how to do Magento 2 yet, so I'm going to be a total loser if I go to a hackathon. Like, what are some of those concerns that you've seen where you say, no, actually we can structure a team in XYZ way and you can still contribute?
Yeah, so the way that we did it there, and I guess you didn't show up, so you don't know, but maybe next year.
I was really hoping you weren't going to mention that. This is the first. I'm such an embarrassment. This is the first year I haven't made it.
It's casual. You'll be there next year, right?
I'll be there next year.
Have the booth again. By the way, that booth was so awesome. Anyway, back on topic. So the way that we did it was we had a GitHub repo where everyone would put ideas as an issue, and then everyone who was in the room had their GitHub user added to this org, and they could go into these issues and upvote them. And then we grabbed the top 5 or 6, and then kind of said, okay, these are the top 5 or 6. I made signs for them and put them on different tables, and so people could just go to that table and ask how they could help. But of course, there were more than, I think there were like 8 or 9 or 10 different projects that actually got worked on. So it was pretty, it was not incredibly structured, and there was still a lot of self-organization, but you know, I just wanted to make sure after it seemed like most people had sat down that if someone didn't have something to work on, they could go work with any of those groups, and then after that started exploring, you know, is this a Magento 2 thing or what? But it was a huge help, and I think a barrier breaker for Magento 2, that there were a lot of Magento 2 core developers there. That was really cool. I think there were like 5 or 6 or 7 different guys, and even some people that I didn't know were going to show up, like Alan Kent was there and Anton Krill were both there. So that was awesome and super helpful.
They're super involved. Was it all probably the people from the community engineering team?
Yeah, and that was a team of 5, I think, or 4 or 5. So they were all there and helping everyone do the stuff that they wanted to do and write the proper tests that they required for them to get merged, because the goal was to actually have something get merged. And a couple things actually did get merged at the end of the day. I think Andra, I don't know how to say her last name.
Lungu?
Yeah. She worked on something having to do with the command line with one of the community engineering guys, and I think they ended up getting that merged. I'll have to check on that, but they got pretty far and they had tests and everything.
Yeah, I remember seeing a tweet about a couple things. That's really cool, man. What were some of the projects that were interesting? I've heard about a few of them, but what were some of the projects that people worked on?
Yeah, so I tried as best as I could to live tweet the thing, and I'm not a Twitter person, so if you want, you could go back in my timeline and look at the pictures that I took. But
no Twitter game.
Yeah,
got no Twitter game.
I got to work on that. Is there like a training that I can take for that, or
there's a Magento U Twitter training. Top secret.
Yeah. So I mentioned the thing that Andra worked on, and then Laura Folco and Sander implemented a config search for Magento 2. Laura said this was one of the things that she used most, and like always install the Magento 1 installations, and so they just decided during the hackathon to port it to Magento 2, and it was working already by the time it was over.
Nice.
So that was really cool. Let's see. Ben Roby did some layered navigation improvements for Magento 2. Martin Pachol, who's from Mage Mojo, had some code integrity checking using some like source verification stuff.
Oh, cool.
And, so Mr. Fu Man came up with this generated code Reaper for Magento 2 to remove a lot of the unnecessary stuff that gets generated on every request for Magento.
Oh, okay.
And Andreas worked on that, and so that was interesting. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff, probably around 10 of them. So go back to my Twitter timeline around April 2nd, or just go to the Hackathon org. I think it's github.com/mage_hackathon.
Cool.
You should see everything.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link that up. One of the things that's tricky about the GitHub orgs, like for hackathons, is a lot of times people use the same org for multiple hackathons. So then it's kind of hard to like isolate which were the projects for a specific event. Usually if you just sort by times, like by recent activity, you can kind of tell, but I've dug through those a few times, kind of trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and I also, that's a good point. I'm not sure that everyone actually used that one, because there was the Magento 2 repo specifically that they didn't actually, I don't know if they forked Magento 2 into this org, and they might have just worked directly in the Magento 2 repo with pull requests. So it's kind of scattered around, but if you can find the people that worked on it, you can ask them and they'll point you to where the project actually lives. I didn't want it to be so structured that someone had to put it in the Hackathon repo for some reason if that messed up their workflow or something like that.
Yeah. Like, what would you say to people that are maybe thinking about organizing a hackathon? What would you say to them as far as like, how much work is involved in it? Like, is it a good idea or not? What are some of the tips you'd give to make it as smooth, other than getting the shirts on time?
Yeah, so that's number one. There's a ton of resources online for learning about what makes a good hackathon and some ideas for how things could work. I mean, sometimes the Magento 2 hackathon is always very technical, but there are other types of hackathons which involve business people who, maybe they come in with some sort of domain knowledge on, I mean, this is getting away from Magento, but maybe someone like there's a doctor that has some idea from the medical field and they don't know how to do things technically. So they could come in with some knowledge, and then someone else comes in with technical knowledge, and you could work together that way. There's a lot of different things that you can do. It's kind of a blank slate. It's more like just a come together and get something done type of thing. It doesn't always have to be completely technical. So
yeah. What do you? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was say, what do you think about? Because I was thinking about this the other day. Some of these hackathons are a little more commercial in nature. Like they'll have like serious prize money. Like you can like top prizes or $10,000 or
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about that. I was like thinking that might be interesting for Magento to do because it could increase some excitement around it. But then, maybe I don't know, maybe that would make things a little too commercial and create too much competition as opposed to collaboration. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, my main concern with that is I think most of the time, if there's prizes involved or money or something like that, whoever organized the hackathon owns all of the code that gets written there. And that's like the complete opposite of what we would want to do with the Magento hackathons, where it's everything is open, and at the end of the day, the community as a whole benefits from what happens there. So I mean, maybe there's a way that you could have some sort of prize money, but then you have to get into how you judge things, and it also doesn't seem like the hackathons so far have been about judging who was the best. It's just kind of working. The best part is working together with the community in one room, whereas most of the time we're kind of talking on Twitter. It's really nice to get to sit next to someone and do something with them, rather than making sure that you did the best thing.
Yeah. It might kind of impact like you're saying, it's such a friendly community and collaborative vibe. It might kind of kill that a little bit.
Yeah, the room would be very quiet if there was prizes involved, I think.
All right. Nice, man. And so, what did you think about Imagine just in general? It was it was great to see you and get a couple hugs, couple bear hugs.
Exactly.
Yeah. How was it for you overall?
I hadn't been to Imagine since 2013, maybe. So it's been quite a few years. But the production was amazing then, and now it's just like, wow, you guys had a booth on a stage for the entire time. And so it was like, okay,
ridiculous.
Magento obviously puts a lot of money into this type of thing to make it awesome. So yeah, it was really cool. I like that my worry the past few years has been that they've been getting too far away from the technical stuff, but there was a pretty robust technical track. There was always something that you could go see that was a tech focused if you wanted it. So that kind of cleared away my worry there. But the biggest thing for me was just meeting everyone and seeing you and seeing everyone that you see online all the time and actually having conversations with them.
Nice. Yeah, that's usually that's usually kind of the highlight for me. What were any of the tech sessions that stuck out in particular that you enjoyed?
That I enjoyed? Um,
Like, oh, that I enjoyed? Scratch that. That's going to be a short list.
no, there.
I know it's been a few weeks now, so it's probably not all top of mind.
No, I only say that I enjoyed because there was the one, which I don't know if a lot of people went. There was the security one where Magento released or announced that they're working on this new security thing. And I guess I get to say whatever I want about it because I'm not involved at all. But it's kind of scary, to be honest. Did you see that at all?
I think I heard about it. Was Joel working on it from Mediotype?
Yeah,
I think,
and
yeah.
Joel's a good guy, so I don't want to be mean or anything, but it's just the fact that they want everyone to give SSH access to their Magento servers seems
Oh,
like,
is that how it works?
yeah. So you give them like read-only SSH access. You actually create an SSH user for Magento to go in and run security checks. And I don't know. We'll see where that goes. They don't even have a beta yet, so maybe they'll change. But if that's the way that it is, I'm not going to use that tool.
That's a little, yeah, that's a little tricky. Maybe, I mean, hopefully they might have a few different modes to run it in, where maybe if you want to take the time to set everything up yourself, you can run it yourself.
Yeah, that'd be great if they released it as like a standalone tool that you yourself could keep track of. Then that would be perfect. But I think there's a reason that most other large CMSs or e-commerce software don't have a tool like this that is a service.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Back in the day, I built this thing called Mage Update.
Mhm.
And the idea was to create like an upgrade service, like a focused niche service to help with Magento upgrades. And so, I was doing a lot of stuff by hand. I was doing a lot of like code, review by hand, and I built some tools to do like diffs and I built a thing that did pretty much exactly that. You put in your SSH credentials, and it would go connect to the site, pull everything down, and then do some stuff. But I had some pushback on that too, and in hindsight, that probably wasn't the smartest approach.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a tool that was that an automated tool, or did someone have to engage you directly to do that?
They'd have to engage directly.
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of like eventually it would become a repository of a single entity having access to every Magento store, and so it's pretty easy to take that to the logical conclusion of if that single entity gets compromised, then well, everybody's screwed.
Yep, totally. It's interesting because they're kind of dipping more and more into the cloud in various ways, like cloud hosting,
Mhm.
some of the different products. And then this is like a little bit of a similar thing where, I mean, I can understand how they want to help with security, help with scans, probably helps to have some of that data
Of course.
centralized. But yeah, just all the classic trade-offs of cloud versus deployed.
Yeah, I'm really excited that they're investing in this type of thing to make sure that stores are actually secured. But maybe it'll evolve into something that works a little better for everyone.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of hosting stuff, I think you were saying you guys are doing. I mean, obviously, all of Fabrizio's talks, have such interesting content around AWS stuff.
Mhm.
But you guys have been doing and you've been working on that yourself as well, some AWS stuff.
Yeah, I launched a Magento 1 client in an infrastructure similar to what Fabrizio talks about with the auto scaling and immutable deployments and stuff like that. And it's really interesting and it works really well. But we were talking about how even though that seems to work awesomely and it's pretty cheap, it's the support aspect of that is always the interesting and harder to deal with aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's that like? Like, what are the types of issues that come up support wise?
So I mean the big one is probably the underlying operating system having updates all the time, like, you know, the dirty cow thing. You have to make sure that that's patched, and those types of things come out all the time. So you could probably figure out a way to do that in an automated way to have kernel updates come in automatically. But then, of course, you have to be alerted to those things and make sure you test for them and stuff like that.
Right.
Most of the time, we're focused on making sure that the application is tested and that the application code is all good. So worrying about the infrastructure portion of that is just an added cognitive load. And that's mostly for I mean, we didn't talk about it yet, but AOE has the big HQ in Wiesbaden, which is like getting close to 300 people. But in this office, it's
in Germany, the German HQ. Yeah.
Germany. And in this office, it's just a few of us. So anything that adds to that type of thing that takes us away from delivering features and stuff like that on the application level is annoying.
Right. Because you were saying you guys have a very flat team structure where each developer, like you're doing infrastructure, you're doing dev work, you're working with clients. What's that? I think that's a really cool structure for a team.
Yeah, it's everyone has agency, and there's nothing that comes in from on high that doesn't get a discussion. Like I said, there's a few of us, and so it kind of worked out to a way that each one of us kind of has a main client, but we pull each other in for things that we need help with and stuff like that on a daily basis. And that works really well because we can have time where we're focused on something that we're trying to deliver. But if there's something that someone else needs help on, we can plan for, okay, well, maybe we need to spend a couple days this week working together on this. And so it's a nice, it's like casual sharing of resources type thing. Although, sorry, I just called myself a resource. Whatever.
That's the worst. What? Speaking of calling yourself a resource, when you so the AWS stuff, how was that? And I don't know very much about AWS, so this is going to go over my head in about 5 seconds. But how did I mean, to the extent that you can share some of it, how was that structured?
As a whole, we can start from development, I guess. So say you're working on a feature or something like that, and if you want, it's in a feature branch, and then eventually it gets merged into master. For now, when it gets merged into master and then pushed, there's a webhook from whatever service you're using for Git hosting that triggers Jenkins to build a package for that code. So that does like the composer updates and modman installs and stuff like that, and then you get something that's a tarball.
Yep.
And then once you have that, that's uploaded to an S3 bucket. I mean, this is it's mostly, I think Fabrizio mentioned a lot of it, but it's pretty similar, except for that for this it's working in Jenkins directly. And so then Jenkins triggers a build or a deployment via stack formation, which I don't know if you've seen that, but that's the thing that Fabrizio wrote for cloud formation. Yeah, cloud formation templates. It's like a preprocessor for that. So that handles deploying. And a deployment basically means you get new servers with the new code, and as soon as those new servers report that they're okay, the old servers get shut down and the load balancer points to the new one. So it's a zero downtime, immutable deployments. We never log into a server and change the code that's running there.
Nice.
It's the big thing. And that mostly gives us the confidence that if something's working in the staging environment, then it has to work in production because this exact same thing just happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you ever, because it's like, as a developer, like something, you have a situation like that where something has to work in both environments, but for some crazy reason it doesn't. Does that ever happen, or is it 100% rock solid between staging and prod?
I haven't had any issues like that in a very long time, but of course it's always possible because you're not going to pull down the database from production and have it be exactly the same. I mean, you have to flip authorize.net because you don't want to take payments on stage. You want to be able to test payments on stage. So
Sure.
if there's a problem with authorize.net, then you couldn't have tested for that unless there was like, I don't know, unless you did do something like that. So there's always little things like that. But for the most part, this has significantly reduced the rollbacks that we would have to do in production. I haven't had to do a rollback in production since we started this type of setup.
Nice. Got it running like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. So AOE is a company I'm sure a lot of people are very interested in. You guys do amazing work, have won, countless awards, have a really cool team, really cool open source ethos and stuff like that. Are you guys doing any hiring right now? If anybody's interested in talking to you guys, are you guys available?
Yeah, always. We're always looking for talented people, and even if you don't think that you're talented, you probably are. So please consider applying or looking into it or whatever. I don't think anyone who works at AOE thinks of themselves as like an elite person who is better than everyone else. Even if you're scared or something like that, just give it a try. You can see all of the stuff that we're doing on GitHub for the most part. So check that stuff out, and yeah.
Nice. And you guys generally in the San Francisco office, you guys generally have people on site in San Francisco, I'd imagine.
Yeah, we've done that before, where someone will fly out to engage the team and see how we work together. Of course, there's always like the code review thing that everyone does. But some people like to do the write an entire application for us so that we can look at it, But yeah. I think for us, it's just like, if you have GitHub, we could use that, or just send us some of your example code, and we can go from there.
Cool. And what do you guys look for, in a developer? I mean, it sounds like you're all the team members are senior level developers, so you're probably not looking for more junior team members. But what would you say you look for?
Yeah, I mean, experience level is always something that you look at, but it's not like we would reject someone based solely on that if what they are doing is good. So we look for people who we work well with, and I mean, being active in the open source community is obviously a plus. But if you're good at what you do, then it becomes obvious pretty quickly. So I don't know there's no like magic criteria, right, for figuring out who's good and who isn't. You just have to try it out. So
yeah. It's it when you see it.
Sure.
Nice, man. And we'll probably wrap up here in a little bit, but if you can share some of the stuff that you've been working on. I know we talked about AWS and stuff, but in the pre-show you were talking about some interesting stuff you've been working on lately.
Yeah, so one of our big clients that we've had for a long time, we have white papers on, so I guess I can mention it, as Heath Ceramics, which is here in San Francisco. We're moving them from Magento 1 to Magento 2, and looking at doing a headless implementation for that with to be determined, but pretty solidly chosen CMS. But the interesting part is that Magento will most likely be doing none of the display, which is kind of exciting because I'm not a front-end developer and I'm pretty horrible at that. So pushing that off to a different system would be nice. And it'll be interesting to see. There's a lot of interesting GitHub repos that have started recently, looking at use cases for the Magento 2 API. Have you seen those?
No, I don't think I have.
I'll have to send you a link, because basically what this repo is a discussion point for the community to talk about what they would like to do with the Magento 2 API, and it was started by one of the community engineers. So if there's something that the Magento 2 API is missing, then you can open an issue there and start the discussion, which is really cool. I love how open Magento has become in the past couple of years. It's pretty awesome to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man.
So like right now, there's not really a way to drive the full checkout process. So we'll have to add that or see kind of where that is on that repo. Um,
Got it. Got it.
yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. And what are some of the other use cases that are interesting?
For the Magento 2 API.
Yeah.
I think Sander added one about stock information not being fully available in the API.
Oh, okay.
So just like, you know, in an ideal world, every entity would be accessible somehow from the API, and you could drive Magento completely from that. But that
Right.
takes a lot of time. So they just want to get an impression of exactly what are the biggest things that people want to do and go from there.
Right. That's cool. And so you're thinking about going headless, and so there's probably some API coverage that, well, I mean, you just mentioned several of them. So checkout, for example. So you wouldn't be able to go live until that's available, right? Or
Well, we would
would you
have to implement
use?
it.
Right. That's
Um,
cool.
so yeah, I mean, it's great that there is a visible representation of the fact that they're adding to the API. But if, I mean, of course, we're going to have to add stuff ourselves.
Hmm. And
Until
then when when you um when you implement that, are you planning on doing PRs into the core for the API coverage
good question.
or
Um, yeah, I mean, the problem is implementing something as a pull request is a lot different than implementing it as like a additional functionality or a module.
yeah.
So you kind of have to decide, you know, if I implement this as a pull request worthy implementation of this, um, is it worth the extra time to do it in both ways? Because you don't want to wait for the pull request to get merged before you can launch the project.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, because I mean, ideally they have to get to that speed where they can like leverage guys like you that would basically be able to build that in the core for them. But it's not going to happen unless you know that it'll get merged fast enough for the project to go live. Otherwise, you just build it in an extension, call it a day.
Sure. And the other benefit with the extension is you could do some things that are not as general and would work only for your use case, whereas for the general public, it might not be totally helpful for them to have these type of things. So I understand that Magento has a lot to think about for all of these pull requests. So it's probably easier just to build it as a module and then on one of the fun Fridays that we have, see if you can port it to a core thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That makes sense. It's going to be, might not make sense for you to build it, generically in the way that it would need to be done for the core.
I guess that's something else that I forgot to mention. In the San Francisco office, we have these fun Fridays where if there's something that you've been interested in lately, you can take a portion of the day. Usually it's like after we have lunch together, we decide to like talk about it and then go look at something together. And so we just spend the rest of the day doing something that's not project work. Uh,
Nice.
One of them recently was we looked at um, this thing called serverless, which I think now it's called JAWS, maybe. But what it is a way to drive AWS's serverless infrastructure. So API Gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB, that type of stuff,
Mm.
and do that as code. And so we did that one of these Fridays, and then maybe a month or so later, we actually used that in a project. So it was immediately usable investment to do that type of thing. We ended up building
So
some
cool.
in inventory management system in AWS using the serverless stuff. So that was really awesome to see something like that actually have an effect.
Yeah, dude, that's so cool. I love we actually in Commerce Hero added a field for companies that have some sort of self-directed work, whether it's like that kind of a thing or like the Google 20% project type thing. I think that says so much about a company when, there's some time for self-directed work.
Yeah, it seems like the investment is almost always worth it, but
Yeah. Yeah. And then one of the other cool things you were talking about was your the chat thing you were talking about. Yeah.
So that was something that I think they implemented. It was an idea like 2 weeks ago, and this is kind of a gauge on how much agency everyone has in the various offices. So this was an idea in the German office. I think someone was worried about the how many when you get to a certain number of people in an office, rumors start to happen about various things, and they're getting up to like 300 people. So they wanted a way for someone to ask about a problem that they saw or something. I'll give you an example in a second, where they were worried that if they asked this out loud, maybe there would be some repercussions for like someone thinking a certain way about them. So someone had this idea, and then the next week it was implemented, and it's called the Whisper Chat. So you download this application that they have that only works when you're VPN'd into the network, I think. I don't know. I haven't done it yet. And it's super secure. It doesn't track your IP or anything like that. And you can just type in a message anonymously, and it gets added to the special Whisper Chat. And it goes in as like an italicized little, this is the whisper. And then people can comment on it and either say like yes or no if they're the ones that can answer it, or the CEO has come in and had something to say about every single thing that's happened so far. So like one of them is, I heard that some people are unhappy about the temperature zones in the office. And like maybe you just don't want to complain that your place.
Oh my God, that's such a big deal. In my co-working space, every once in a while, I'm just like freezing.
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
It's an awesome way to call out some like rumors or something like that that you think is something that you want the CEO or somebody to see, but you don't necessarily want them to know that it was you. Another one was like, I wonder if we would ever consider bringing dogs to the office, stuff like that. So, I mean, of course, there's rumors and stuff too, but it's really cool that you can go in without any worry about someone knowing that you're the one that asked the question and get an almost immediate response from top level management and owner of the company. So that's
so cool, man.
Yeah, it was interesting that it was an idea and happened within like a week, and now it's there, and there's stuff going on every day.
Yeah, I'm actually, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about like 2 or 3 things in my co-working space that I probably would want to like would want to rant about.
Yeah,
and so, you know, sometimes there's something, it might seem like it's so small, like you don't want to be petty to mention it.
exactly.
But it does bug you, and just being able to get it off your chest. That's cool, man. It's just another thing that shows you guys have such a cool company culture.
Yeah, of course, there's already been some security analysis done on that tool by Bastian and others to make sure that there's no leaking or anything like that. So it's pretty fun.
I can imagine
this thing to focus on.
That's awesome, man. And actually, one other thing I forgot to ask about was the M1 to M2 migration. How's that going for you? How long have you been working with the migration? And you know, everybody's at a different place with M2 right now.
Sure.
How comfortable have you been getting with it?
Yeah, we haven't actually started the migration yet because we're still doing discovery and figuring out what CMS we want to use, and if we're going headless, how headless are we going? Because you know, there's always maybe we don't want to implement the API portion for the checkout process, so maybe Magento only displays checkout. So we're still figuring all that stuff out, but it was helpful at Imagine to see Max talk about the migration tools and stuff like that. And I don't know if I would have considered that before going to that talk, but now hearing that some people have had success with it, maybe we'll go that route and try actually using the migration tools and the data migration tools that they have.
Nice. Well, cool, man. This has been fun. Got a chance to talk about a number of cool topics. And if there's anything else you wanted to mention, also, how can people find you online?
Yeah, I would say if you or anyone else in the community is in San Francisco for any reason, again, please just let me know. We're right like literally 1 minute south of the airport. So let me know and I'll come grab you, and we can I'll show you the office and show you the bay and stuff like that we have behind the lagoon. The Anza Lagoon is really cool. So let me know if you're in town. For finding me, I'm at D_RBN on Twitter.
What does your Twitter handle mean, by the way? Is it just?
I basically stole it from Fabrizio. So Fabrizio's is FBRNC because his name is Fabrizio Branca, and mine used to be some really stupid long one, and I changed it to D_RBN because my name is David Robinson, and that was the only thing that I found that wasn't taken. And so I have
Got it.
that for Twitter, and my domain is drbn.net and stuff like that. So I like it being short. For some reason, I'm fascinated with short names. Like my daughter's name is Rhea, and it's 4 letters REYA, just because it's like super duper short, and it's
Nice.
interesting to me when you can have something elegantly done in that small amount.
Nice. Awesome, man. And sorry, were we going to say one last thing?
No.
Okay. Cool. All right, man. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks,
Talk
Cam.
to you soon. All right, man.